Chris, how are you?
Does that work now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. There might be Paw Patrol in the background.
Okay.
It's all good. It is the only redeeming quality of these meetings is George's dog, your kids. Other than that, I am done with Zoom.
Yeah.
It looks like we're almost at 5 o'clock, sir. And just to reiterate, Steve will not be joining us tonight. He has something else he was unable to make.
Yep.
But he does believe that he will be able to join us for the 7 p.m. meeting.
Sounds good. Well, it's 5 o'clock by my computer and my phone. So why don't we go ahead? This is the budget workshop number 1 for the South Haven City Council. It is Monday, April the 19th, 2021. It's 5 o'clock. So let's call the meeting to order. We will not be doing roll call because this is simply a budget workshop. So good evening, everybody. No cookies tonight, sorry, because we're at home. But next, City Council will begin discussion of the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. And we're going to be reviewing some funds. Kate's here. Rosemary's smiling. She can't wait to just blow us away with numbers. So, hey, take it away, whoever's got it. Let's start from the
Well,
top.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I think we'll get started with in just a few minutes with just some brief comments from myself. I do want to apologize we did have the finance director put some documents together that has been presented, that will be presented to you tonight. And it was also dropped off at your homes earlier today by Megan. Thank you, Megan. But just to kind of reiterate, the finance director put this stuff together, and unfortunately, due to an illness, she was unable to be here today. So Rosemary is going to be jumping in, and of course, you have some of the budget comments that have been put together, as well as a number of sheets and a large spreadsheet of the actual budget document. And I do want to just kind of reiterate that we will be walking through the funds, spending most of our time on general fund, and then going through the different funds that we do have. It is our plan to get you out here in about an hour, hour and a half, so we have a half an hour between our next meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Rosemary and start walking you through this budget document.
Okay, because can everybody see my screen, or I did not do this right yet, did I?
Nope, no screen sharing has occurred.
Okay, so. All right. Let's see.
Okay, we see your blue screen.
Yeah, I'm getting there,
Okay.
or at least I'm trying to. All right, do you have it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I will just move, well, all right. Shoot, that is not what I wanted to do. I'm going to try to share a different screen. Sorry for this.
Okay.
It's what happens when we punt. I got to share a different screen here. All right, how about now?
So this is the budget document that's at 116 pages. Is this where you wanted to be?
Yes, it is. All
Okay.
right, so you see that. Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope that you have had a chance to review this document either electronically. I will be referring to page numbers as I walk our way through this. And here goes nothing. So this is a proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. We started this budget process back in January. mailing out information or emailing out information to all the directors and department heads who fill out their budgets and submit their requests for next year. City Council, you established your board priorities in February and approved those. We have almost $2 million worth of items put in next year's budget to address your priorities, and I'll touch on those as we get to those departments and functions. We met with all of the departments in March, had individual meetings to discuss their budgets, priorities, made adjustments where necessary. And here we are in April, presenting it to you for the first time. And getting feedback and answering questions. In May, you will hold public hearing on the budget. In June, you will be presented with resolutions to approve and adopt our budget for next year. Let's see. I think Kate says it very nicely here in the second paragraph of her letter to the mayor and city council members, that the 21-22 fiscal year is filled with challenges and opportunities for the city of South Haven. Council is aware of difficulties the city faces in generating the needed revenues to fund the services our citizens have come to expect. Some of the significant items that have impacted the fiscal year budget, certainly COVID-19, that's been affecting the entire world for well over a year and continues to do so. High water levels, that was probably our #1 priority last year. We had dollars budgeted in contingency to help address those. Items, thank goodness we did not have to tap into that money. But we did have to shut down our Northside Marina, which through the help and assistance of some grant dollars, gave us the opportunity to make major improvements of just over $3 million to our Northside Marina. We are well underway with those improvements and plan to open within less than a month. So
We're open now, actually.
okay, all right, thank you. Street improvements are always included in the budget at various levels. Economic development efforts and housing needs are a couple of board priorities, and we have dollars budgeted to address some of those. Let's see. This did not. I'm going to try something here. Are you able to see the fiscal year
The
overall budget
comment?
comments?
Yes.
Okay, so in starting for our general fund, our major source of revenue is property taxes. Our taxable value has increased 3.48% for this upcoming year. And we have several millages that we levy. See, now I have to get back to the.
Hey, Rosemary, question, I'm gonna jump right in here. I've always been curious and I still have never seen the magic number. Because as we talk about Headley and all that other good stuff, I understand the overall increase in taxable value, 3.48. Is that based on existing homes, or does that also include new homes rolled into that taxable value number?
There would be some additions included in that
Okay,
number.
that's existing plus new home builds.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, except now I have to get back to the budget document.
There was another window you had open, so maybe you have to go down to the next window.
All right. No. All right. Now I've lost it, so. Shoot.
You click on the Chrome button at the bottom of your screen. I think you have more than one window.
Oh, okay, okay.
There you go.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Okay. All right, so here's the millage that we're proposing to be levied in 21-22. We don't have final numbers yet. We expect a possible Headley adjustment, and we get those final numbers from the Equalization Department at Van Buren County. They have until the end of April to get that approved through their board, and we'll get information at that time. So we'll be updating these final millage numbers and bring those back to you in June with the final budget adoption. Okay. On pages 8 through 17 of your budget includes 4 resolutions that you will be getting to approve. 3 of these deal with the different budgets that you will need to approve. And the last resolution deals with the property tax millage that you will approve for us to levy. And they're the same as prior years, just the numbers have been updated. Page 18 is an existing City of South Haven organizational chart. This has not changed from last year as far as the boxes. Only the people within those boxes have moved around. On page 21, whoops. This is a graph of revenues and expenditures by fund type. If you add the enterprise funds, which is comprised mostly of our utility funds, and the general fund together, those 2 fund types make up 82% of our city's operating cost. So that's a majority. I'm going to go to page 23, which is the general fund. This is where our operating millage gets reported. You can see property taxes make up the largest share of our revenue to the general fund. We collect almost 50% of property taxes. Of what we collect, just over 6% is transferred back though to other entities, that being the library and senior services. So we're not able to keep those taxes for operations. On the expenditure side for general fund, personnel costs make up almost 42% of our budget. Contractual services, 19.47, and capital outlay, 6.28. Personnel costs are actually very flat compared to last year as a percentage of our budget. Last year it was 41.86, so it's hardly moved at all. Contractual services, they are down 3.82%. That's because the prior year had expenditures for the splash pad. Our capital outlay percentage, though, that increased by 5.18% because included in the current year budget is dollars for Kids Corner. Okay, on page 25, if you're following along on your own paper. So every department in every fund that I'm going to go through has a similar structure in that we show you 3 years of history of actual revenues and expenditures. We show the current year original budget, where we were at the end of February, projected, where we project we're going to end up at the end of June, next year's budget, and then we also take a little peek at what things might look like for 22, 23, although we don't discuss it a whole lot. So if I take a look at general fund here, if you recall last year when we presented this budget, we were looking at almost a $500,000 deficit, revenues under expenditures. We are projecting now that we are going to be closer to a $370,000 surplus. There are two main things that cause this, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because you will receive that information when you get the budget amendment for approval in later in June. But we received some state and federal grant dollars because of COVID that we didn't know anything about when this budget was put together last year. Those are one-time dollars to assist that. The other item I mentioned earlier is that we had $500,000 budgeted in contingency for high water, and we did not need to tap into that. We got very lucky in some respect, and so that expenditure line item has also been reduced. So that's on a positive note. On the flip side, proposing for 21, 22, we are looking at a $526,000 deficit again. So, but we have fund balance to be able to accommodate that. As we go through some of the things included in the budget, you'll see why that is. Let's see. Okay. Also, when we go through all of the departments, you will see a box that explains what the department functions are and any major items in the budget. And then there will be a graph depicting expenditures. So you will see that on every page in this budget for either the departments or the funds. The first one I'm going to touch on is City Council. That is on page 26. In City Council's budget here, we have dollars budgeted for an equity assessment and the development of a community vision statement. See if I can. Those are two of your board priorities. So we have included those in the budget. Moving down to
Rosemary, those contractual services, is that what that's under?
yes, this 45,000.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Page 31. So I'm not going to talk about, so you have the overall budget comments and discussion points, and we have made personnel changes in all of them. We have adjusted for IT and motor pool charges in all of the budgets if that's applicable. I'm not going to talk about that at every single department because you can see that. I only want to talk about the things outside of those changes that are of significance. So the next one I want to talk about is page 31. which is corporate counsel. Legal fees. All right, so our original budget, we had $100,000 budgeted for codification update. We did not do that in 2021. We have budgeted for that again in 21-22. Again, that is one of the city council priorities. Page 33. Other personnel costs, you see that this went up close to 10%. But the major change in here is the contribution that we are required to make into MERS for costs relating to a closed fire division when the fire division is now under Shays. But we are still required to fund that plan for any remaining costs. Page 35 is our building and grounds. We have dollars budgeted in here for a housing project at Overton property, housing assistance for low and moderate income, another council priority. We have funded some COVID-19 related expenditures out of this budget too, but we've been able to accommodate for those under the existing budget and did not need to increase the current year budget for some of those expenditures. Page 39. This is just the city's contribution for fire and ambulance. We are in a partnership with the South Haven Township, Casco Township, Geneva Township. There's a separate board that oversees it. And this is the city's share for those services. That's based on taxable value and population play a role in that. And all right, we're going to go to page 41. This is our building code department. We have dollars budgeted for contractual zoning work, money for waterfront conservation, and we also pay Shays for inspections on our short-term rentals out of this budget. Page 42, this is, even though it's a small dollar amount, this is year 4 of a 5-year contract that we have with the Alvan Humane Society. Page 44 is our highways and streets. We have a project on Ellsworth between Kalamazoo and LaGrange. Budgeted. This is part of the Safe Routes to School project. In addition to these costs, we have federal dollars for offsetting revenue budgeted of almost $135,000 to help offset these costs. Anything you want to add on to that, Bill?
The Safe Routes to School, that's actually CMAQ funding.
Oh, sorry.
That's no problem.
Okay. All right.
I'll just jump in and say Ellsworth sidewalks are long overdue. I'm glad to see there's some money for them, so nice to get people off the streets.
Okay. Page 48. All right, so this is where we pay out. So we collect the revenue for these taxes for the senior services in the library, and then we pay them back out to those entities. On page 49 is our sort of our economic development. So we've had some personnel changes here. A portion of our assistant city managers personnel costs are charged here as he focuses on some economic development. Some of these charges used to go to the LDFA funds. The revenue in those funds has decreased significantly from the state and therefore can no longer support those costs. Let's see. In addition, we have an additional amount of money, $25,000 budgeted for some economic development consulting, broadband feasibility study, and economic basic training. We know economic development is a city council priority.
It's the top priority, and that's why while the numbers, we really wanted to put some effort into these, to this one here. We do know that there's a number of different initiatives that the city will be undertaking, and we've tried to forecast out what those costs will be. But just know that some of them may not cost much, but we also, there's just a significant time commitment, and that's why we're going to be allocating more of the personnel costs for the assistant city manager in this fund.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Page 50 is our Parks Department. We
Hey,
have-
Rosemary,
Yes,
real quick back on 49, the additional, it looks like contractual services for the for this on page 49.
yes.
Can someone give me an example what kind of contractual services we're looking at on that?
Sure. So if we still work with Jim Hettinger, he would be a fund that we would, his invoices would be drawn off of that contractual services fund. Should the city, along with a partnership, come up with a feasibility study or amount for broadband or anything kind of expansion that would come out of this fund. If we're looking at collection of or any kind of initiative that would be economic development focused, that would be coming out of this contractual services fund. Does that help, George?
Yep, thanks, Kate.
Okay. Back on page 50, our Parks Department. We have $550,000 budgeted here in capital outlay. This is for Kids Corner playground structure. We also have budgeted offsetting revenue in the general fund of $275,000 for that. So we need to cross our fingers on all these grants. On page 52 is the museum budget. In here, we have budgeted $36,000 for a new roof on the Center for the Arts. I understand that this is only half of the cost that the museum is applying for a grant to pay for the remaining half of the cost of this roof. And that total is closer to $72,000 for the new roof. Those are the only highlights I have for the general fund. Are there any other questions that anyone might have on general fund before we move on to the next category?
Rosemary, sorry, Scott. Just at some point in time, could we get, I'd like a little more detail on number 33, that, you know, the general fund, the other personnel that where we're paying MERS, and that what appears to be a couple $100,000 I'm staring at it correctly.
In other personnel?
Yeah,
Well,
Okay.
so most of that cost is for our HR department. So there are two people in there, Kim Wise, our HR director, and then an assistant payroll person. Of the additional expense or the amount of money that we pay into MERS for the closed fire division, that was 56,604. We still have 5 retirees drawing on that plan.
gotcha. Now, which slide are you on for that? Sorry, I'm looking for that dollar amount you just threw out.
Well, you won't see it individually, so on page 33, and I'll go
Yep.
back there a minute.
So as you go there, first of all, other personnel is really HR.
Yes,
Perfect. Now, we may want to call it that.
well, I don't disagree, so I will make a note of that and pass that on.
Kind of an important other.
Okay, so the payment into MERS is one of the, it's recorded under part of the benefits, so it's all a part of the personnel cost here. So it's gonna be a part of this 206,000.
Gotcha. And that will go on kind of into perpetuity.
As long as we have people drawing on that plan.
Okay, sounds good. And for the rest of council, I'm working on a project to bring everybody a little more information on MERS and long-term liability. So that'll be coming soon. So perfect. Thank you.
Yes. So, let's see. All right, so any other questions on general fund? All right, so we're gonna move on to page 56. So this is just listing all of our different special revenue funds. So these funds are either covered by a separate millage or we receive revenue that is designated for a specific purpose and is required to be kept separate from the general fund. The first 3 that I'll talk about are our street funds. The first one being our major street fund. And on page 58, you can see here under bridge maintenance, we've got an increase here under service contracts. We have an increase there because we have to put in some heavy riprap under the bridge. We have to place some new safety gates at all of our traffic gates so people can't get past them and run into them and hurt themselves. Little bit of repairs to the steel access stairs and some painting. Other than that, it's pretty much routine maintenance items and snow removal costs for next year. There are no capital improvements included in next year's budget with Act 51 dollars.
Hey, Rosemary, while you said Act 51, it's more of a trivia question. I don't know if Bill knows the answer, but if it's not a public road, theoretically, that Act 51 money does not make it to the city. Is that correct or not all of it?
That's a good question. The public roads that are actually certified either by major or local, those are the ones we can actually count towards our formula to receive Act 51 funds. Anything that's private roads, we don't receive any funding for those.
Very
Does that
good.
answer your question?
It does, yeah. And part of the question was just where does some of that revenue end up going? Does the state just capture that? I mean, because these homeowners are still paying taxes, so just some of the
Well,
money.
that tax actually, Scott, it comes from the gas tax. what I'm referring to. Act 51 money is the gas tax from the pumps.
Gotcha. So that one, so the more, gotcha. Okay, that's perfect. That was really kind of the question then. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
That kind of is explained, as I mentioned, we have these little boxes on these pages. And so you know, State Act 51 gas and weight tax distributions. So it's always nice to have these little clues to assist us.
Hey,
I'm in-
Rosemary, before you go on, this is George on the bridge maintenance.
Yes,
And maybe Bill, you might know this, but the improvements that Rosemary was describing to the bridge as far as safety improvements and things like that, are we pretty far along in getting bids and stuff on that? Are we going to be able to spend that money in 2021, 2022?
Yes, we'll be able to, we haven't gone out for bid yet until actually everything gets approved by city council. This will probably be something done in the springtime, George. Just a little bit of background about the heavy riprap. The state of Michigan actually requires us to, anytime you have a bridge, you go through multiple different types of inspections, especially even ours, Bascule. But this one here, that the heavy riprap, it's a scour report that the state requires every bridge to have. So we actually had an engineering firm come in, do the scour report, and they're recommending this. It's $50,000 for just the heavy riprap. That estimate came from their scour report. Going back to the safety gates, believe it or not, will be a gate around a gate. We noticed actually the gates, when they come up and they go down, there's a counterweight and there's a pinch point that someone could get in there. And actually someone, I mean, of somebody small. So what idea is to enclose those so nobody can get in there and get hurt. So that was one thing. And the other one is just some maintenance. The painting and the steel just needs to be, and a lot of those stuff, probably those two could be done not internally, sorry. Could be done locally, but the heavy riprap will probably be something bid out. But to answer your question, no, we haven't done anything at this time, but we feel confident we can get those done in the spring of next year.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
on the local street fund, we have expenditures for street work and sidewalk repairs. I'm sorry, that's it. So that's in Fund 204.
On page 61.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Page 63. You know, some of these maps that you'll see me go past, you've seen them all when you were going through the capital improvement plan with Bill, so I'm not going to touch on them again. So here on page 63 is our garbage and refuge fund. Our contract for that service is set to expire at the end of 2021. We have gone out for bids on that for this year, so we'll be coming back with information on that when the bids are complete.
Yep, and just to kind of step in and kind of explain further, we've had this millage, the contract with Republic now for several years, if not decades. And we've just noted that this is a good year to brush off and submit a new RFP. That's what Griffin has been working on. And we're hoping to get that out here by the end of April. So this will be a request for proposals for new waste haulers. And we're hoping to go through the process and get that locked in a couple months before the contract is set to expire. So that's what our plan is with waste haulers this year.
Hey, Kate, this is George. It looks like we're pretty much keeping the budget the same. Is that, do we have a feel yet for if going out for bids, are we gonna probably come in about where we're at right now, or is it gonna be higher? I would think it would be higher than what we're currently paying.
It could be higher, George. We also know there's some things that we can maybe modify and maybe flex. Right now, we do quite a bit of bulk pickup. That's an additional cost that we could trim down to having monthly bulk pickup. But what we are finding is that we can be pretty detailed in our request for proposals to make sure that it meets our needs as well as meet our budget. So we're trying to tailor the RFP to be a pretty comprehensive process so that we can pick and choose what will meet our needs as well as our budget.
Thank you.
Okay, page 64, this is the city's budget stabilization fund. We're continuing to put $50,000 a year in here to build that fund up. It's often referred to as a rainy day fund. Page 65, this is our narcotics fund. This is funded through a city millage. This millage is set to expire at the end of December, and we will be bringing proposed language to city council to get this back on the ballot, hopefully.
That's correct. We'll be working with the police chief and bond council to get some language to present that to council in the next couple months. As we mentioned, this is the narcotics division. This is where we can participate in regional narcotics efforts to mitigate drug trafficking and those kind of activities. If we do not have that, then we cannot commit an officer to one of those teams. Right now, we commit to 2 officers, and we have the options to going with a regional team or with the county team. So, thanks, Rosemary.
Yep. Page 66. This is a police training fund, small dollars that we get from the state, and it can only be spent on qualifying police training events. So that's overseen by our police chief. Page 67, this is a CDBG. It's a residual from a 1995 fund. So the last time we tapped into this was in 1920. We used $12,500 to help pay for playground equipment at Alkenberg Park. This is for neighborhood improvements in low and moderate income housing communities. So we still have just under 30,000 remaining in this fund. Any questions on any of the special revenue funds?
Hey, Rosemary, CDBG, is that Community Development Block Grant?
Yes.
Thank you.
Actually, Rosemary, before we get too much further, just a question, and maybe it's coming up later, but I know when we talk about budget stabilization fund, I know the reason, I know the point, and I am agreeing with that. But I'm also trying to figure out the spot where we had discussed setting aside some money on an annual basis for high water for now and forevermore. Do we have that showing up someplace else? Or, I mean, it's kind of a discussion point because we haven't had that in the past. And the goal would be is so that the next time the high water goes up in 25 years, there's some money set aside.
We do not have that in the current year budget or next year's budget, I mean.
Okay. So it might be something just at some point in time, we could double back to that. But I mean, I think we all felt like, gee, why has there been no planning? And we know the water is gonna, we're on that 25-year cycle. And wouldn't it be nice that there'd been some money set aside on an annual basis and we get there and there's, pick the amount. I mean, 10 grand a year, whatever it is. And again, that could be part of a group discussion, but there was discussion of planning so that we don't get caught with no funds the next time it cycles up.
We'll make that note, sir.
Thanks.
All right, debt service funds. I am on page 70. This lists all the different bond issues and debt services outstanding that the city has. On Fund 370, we are going to make our last payment on that bond in November of 2021. Yay. So that one will be done. See, Fund 372, that was new last year. That was for accounting for the Sturgis bank loan and SRF, state revolving fund loan for Center Street project. So that was a new one. So some go away, some come on new. And that is, and these funds just account for the principal and interest each year on those bonds. And that is all I have to say about debt service funds. Any questions? All right, I'm going to move on to page 79. We have 4 capital project funds. So the first one, Fund 401, this accounts for projects, capital projects that are not accounted for in an enterprise fund. So as I mentioned, our largest enterprise funds are utility funds, and in a minute, we'll go through the other enterprise funds. But those enterprise funds account for their own capital projects. And so if these are capital projects that don't fall under one of those funds, we account for them here or the general fund. What we have budgeted in this fund for next year is to replace the air handler at City Hall, replace the citywide phone system, add female locker room at the Department of Public Works, and add a back blow preventer. So that's what we have budgeted here in this $265,000. This Public Works Construction Fund, this is the completion of the Center Street project. We have a pavilion and ice rink capital fund that just accounts for donations and expenditures for the operations of the ice rink. And a cemetery and building improvement fund. So we occasionally have to make improvements to that cemetery. We actually, for next year, we have budgeted for some software to account for this, to improve our record keeping on that. Right now, I think it's like in an Access database that nobody knows how to operate. So we're looking at a software compatible with our existing systems. Any questions on capital projects? All right, our enterprise funds. Besides our 3 utilities of electric, water, and sewer, we have Black River Park, the Beach Fund, and the Marina Fund. Under Black River Park, we have budgeted slip rate increases for both this park and the marina, as I'll mention. We actually have really nice schedule to have those increase over the next 3 years. There are no capital projects currently budgeted in 21-22. It wasn't too long ago that we completed the fish cleaning station, so we are all set there for the immediate future. Beach maintenance. This is really kind of dependent on our weather. Hopefully it'll be a nice summer like we had last year.
Rosemary, this is George again.
Yes.
On the beach maintenance fund, I remember a presentation at City Council on new parking system.
Yes, yes.
That's not, I'm taking that's not covered here, or is it somewhere in here?
Well, I thought it was,
It was covered in part by this fund and another fund that we had put capital funding in over time. So the costs were primarily shared by this fund, and then the capital improvement fund that we put in, like I said, those funding. So those costs will be coming half out of here and half out of the other one.
Okay, thank you.
okay. All right, then we have the electric fund. The large item included in the 21-22 budget for electric is this AMI-based installation system for automatic meter reading, and also replacement of the meters for the AMI system software. That's part of this $2 million here. The other $365,000 is the start of Core City Phase 5. And if anybody has any questions on that, I'm turning it over to Bill Hunter. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, moving on. The water fund. Page 92. All right. It's just our normal operations, but what's included in capital outlay would be money to start our lead service replacement. And we also have $100,000 budgeted for an altitude valve at the Blueberry tank. Page 95 is our sewer fund. We have no capital projects budgeted in here for 21-22. If you note down here in the bottom, it back as early as 2017, we had completed over $15 million of citywide projects. So on page 99, this is our Marina Fund. Again, we have seasonal slip increases budgeted in here. We are completing, if we haven't already, improvements at the Northside Marina of just over $3 million. So we have no capital projects budgeted for 21-22. Any questions on the enterprise funds? Right, I'm going to move on to the internal service funds. So internal service funds, we need to make a correction before the final budget. This self-insurance fund is gone. It should be deleted out of here. So we'll get that fixed for the next time around. So we only have 2 remaining internal service fund. What makes these funds different from enterprise funds is these funds service other city departments. Enterprise funds service outside clientele, like our city residents. These 2 funds do not. So they track our all of our computer costs and services and allocate those out to the departments that use them. And the same with our motor pool fund. And our biggest user would be our DPW and our different utilities. Let's see. On page 104, we have a fiduciary fund. This is a cemetery perpetual care fund where people pay for the upkeep of their cemetery after they've paid for their plot. We have to keep the principal intact, and we can only spend the interest that's earned on these funds. So we are the fiduciary of this money. On page 106 is our component units. These component units are separate districts that capture taxes within each of their districts, and they make improvements or provide necessary services to their district to revive them and revitalize them. The budgets are required to be approved by City Council, and that is why you see them. No major changes from here. We have the this is the DDA operating fund. Then we have 3 local development financing authorities, 1, 2, and 3. And then we have a brownfield authority, which is right here. Any questions on this budget document? So other documents that you would have received, a listing of all the city council priorities, the projects. Here is for us internally here, the different accounts that they're budgeted in. The dollar amounts we've budgeted, as I mentioned, we have almost $2 million included in the 21-22 budget. 1.165 million is in the general fund budget for these projects. What you also received was just a comparison of the estimated taxable values between 20 and 21. That's where I show that we got the 3.48% increase. And page 2 of this handout is the state equalized value. The taxable value, the difference between those two is what you may have heard years ago, Proposal A. I don't remember when it went into effect. And that is what causes a lot of our Headley rollbacks where we can't increase taxes higher than the rate of inflation. And I think equalization directors and assessors now have to track both SEV and taxable value. I'm not sure it's simplified anything, but it's what we have. You also received a summary of overall budget comments, a lot of what I talked about. And this was also then, this is a summary of the capital improvement plan. It just shows all the different areas. And then by fiscal year, the total dollar amount that is currently in the CIP plan or the capital improvement plan. I mentioned for 21-22, the $2 million budgeted for the new meter system for electric. And then $365,000 for phase 5. So this is, that's a lot of capital improvements that the city's looking at. Here are your different roads, local and major. So every year you're putting a lot of dollars into capital. That is all I have, unless there are more questions.
Couple of just quick questions or thoughts. One thing on the budget document, knowing the public is to peek at this, I didn't see the descriptions of LDFA 1, 2, and 3, just what they go to. Maybe I missed it. I mean, I know what they are, but they usually have a description, LDFA 1, boundaries, whatnot. So
Let me
That's a
come
good
down.
point. We can put that in there if it's not in there.
it used to be there. That's why I said, I don't know, it might have just gotten lost in a translation somewhere, but it's nice to have it just for quick reference. So people,
All right.
and just that
So,
quick explanation for what they are. And then the other one, this would be kind of a, I think it might be helpful as we look on an annual basis at the fiscal, like you mentioned last, taxable value, how we got to there, whether or not we could, at some point in time, maybe just break down what was the property value, what was just an increase of property value, and what was new home builds, sort of that, hey, we had $1 million of new homes, plus that's how we got to our new taxable value for the year.
Okay. We can see if we can get that breakdown.
And as we need it for this year, I just think it might be, I mean, that might take some time, but just I think on an annual basis, I think it'd be helpful for the public too, to say, oh, okay, we're growing blank and blank. And then, as Rosemary mentioned, I think it's important. I mean, Headley and Proposed Lake do good things for taxpayers because it means we can't just raise, because we're a unique city, right? I mean, you look at our home sales and they're at a clip much higher than inflation. So at the end, we still have to keep, our budgets in check with inflation, which is good. So I think to be able to say, well, we can grow by inflation, but you can technically then add on top of that, you can have new construction. So I think we should understand on an annual basis how much new construction, commercial, residential, what was our growth last year? And we should be able to understand that pretty quickly, as not just to look at it in a document, I'm saying, as we accumulate it through the years. So that would be, if the group would agree, I think I would like to be able to quickly just see my new home starts, what's the value, my new business construction, what's the value? And then we overlay that with just kind of what we know was that inflationary increase in property value. And that's what I got.
So, Mr. Mayor, so here, if I am on LDFA 1, I'm on page 109. So here's the box that explains what that fund is for.
Just to go explaining what it is.
Okay,
What is LDFA? Well, I know what an LDFA is, but I mean, what is LDFA 1? There's a boundary, which is a description of
Okay,
So just to define each of them.
I think we have existing maps that we can pull up actually that show the
We do.
LDFA boundary.
We do. We have an existing map right now that shows the different LDFAs, and we can probably just either slide that in there or just have it as an addendum.
Yeah, just so it's clear. I think those people might look and go, what's that mean? So that's all.
okay. Thank you.
You got it. We like transparency. It's all good. And then I know you mentioned the investment in capital. Super important to realize that our voters have approved, they approved a 5-year road millage because we told them we're going to fix the road, and then they approved the 25-year road millage. So the voters have stepped up and, invested and said, we want our roads looking good. So hats off to our voters who have said, please keep the roads in good condition.
If there's no questions from the council, we can see if there's any public comment at this time.
Yep. I think
To make a public comment, go ahead and raise your hand by clicking the icon, or if you're on a telephone, dial *9.
we'll give them a couple seconds, and if not, we'll adjourn to our meeting. And by the way, staff, thanks again for the larger than life budget documents. They really are helpful for our eyeballs.
You are quite welcome. Quite welcome. I figured they do help when you are looking at so many numbers. And just for the record, I'm not sure if everyone was able to see the gallery view, but we did have Mayor Scott Smith, George Sleeper, Jeff Arnold, and Chris Campbell who attend. We did not have Joe Reeser, Letitia Wilkins, or Steve Schlock. We'll just note that on the attendance portion, sir.
Sounds good. We've got no comments. If there's no other comments from my esteemed council members, I will, I guess we really don't need to, we didn't theoretically open this. I think I should just adjourn it without a motion because we didn't formally open it.
Okay, we can go ahead and adjourn, and this is the same Zoom link and password and meeting ID. So just when you're ready to come back into City Council, we'll just start that meeting all over again.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Rosemary, for answering questions.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do it in a little bit.
Thank you.